Hey everybody, so good to see you even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and today it's just me. Last December, when I did my first ever Persevere podcast, I left you with a hanger, and that only gave you up to 19 years old after I tried to take my life, going up into the mountains and saying to God that I don't want to live no more. Today's Perseverance podcast is the next part of my journey. So you ready to go on this journey with me? Persevering is what can allow you to overcome. But you have to find joy in the pain that you live with. It's not going to be easy, but the reward and the character that you will build in persevering through your challenges will be so rewarding. It will give you so much hope. Are you ready to persevere through your challenges? Let's do this. So hey everybody, if you do not know who I am, and this is the first time you've ever listened to the Perseverance podcast, welcome. It has truly been a journey over these last few years, and coming into the new year has been a roller coaster. But what I'm going to do today, we're going to go through kind of my story from birth to 19, just for a brief second here. And then we're going to run right into when my life pretty much was a struggle. And then you'll have to wait until next year to get the rest of the story. I know. I have to leave a cliffhanger for you to come back next year. I know, I'm not very nice. I love you all. You know I do. But if you know who I really am, you actually know the end of the story. So it's not like I'm really leaving you with a cliffhanger. But for the podcast, we're going to have fun. Alright? This is a recap. If you want to hear the whole story, you got to go to episode 1 of Perseverance Podcast to get that story. But I'm going to quickly go over it. When I was born hard of hearing. My parents had no idea. So at age 1.5, they put a pair of hearing aids on me. And then when I was 13 years old, we learned I had Usher syndrome type 2. Which then at age 19, causing me to go legally blind. Obviously, that is the really short story. So, if you want the rest, go to episode 1, and you can start there, and then come back to this podcast. So, we're going to jump right to where the podcast ends on episode 1, when I was 19 years old. So, after becoming legally blind, losing my driver's license, losing all of that stuff, I had to strive to become more independent. I had to make a determination to keep going forward and continuing to find joy in my pain. Well, I caught a plane, went out to New York, and started attending DeafBlind school at Helen Keller National Center. And I tell you, those were some tough times for me. And some good times for me. Because I built my independence and built my strength, found the freedom in riding the subways and taking taxis, doing all of that. But it brought me into a really dark place. So this is also when I was hit by a car twice within about an 8-week period. Both of them I was in Penn Station area. The first time I was only a couple blocks away. It still brings back memories. And then the other one was a little bit farther up. I was closer to the church. I was going to Harvest Christian Fellowship in New York. We were having church in a ballerina dance studio. It was a good time. Those people were there for the season of my journey. I mean, a shout out to Pat and his wife and Victor and Ollie. I'm praying for you, Ollie, because Ollie is in Ukraine. She was out here for studying abroad. So I'm just praying for her at the moment. So as I progressed through Helen Keller National Center, it's also when I took a taxi up to Yorktown Heights and got my first guide dog. And this was one of those moments where I went from using a blind cane to using a guide dog and having that independence. And then I come home with a guide dog, it's great, everything's good. But I'm starting to feel lonely. I mean, you would think having a dog would help me not be lonely. I'm 20, 21. I want something more. And I didn't really turn that to Christ. What I did is I turned it to my computer. It's hard to say this. I did talk about it a little bit in the John podcast about sex addiction. I struggled with pornography. Because at this point with my vision, I could still see really good in the central part of my vision. So I could see those bad pictures and videos and all that stuff, and it really did a work on me. And thanks to several of my friends willing to talk about it, I was willing to have accountability. What we did is whatever device that you looked at, you lost it for a whole week. So every time you did it more and more, you would lose it another week. And a lot of us guys that were doing this, our computers and our phones were our livelihood. It was how we made money, it's how we did our schoolwork, and it was one of the biggest blessings for me. I had a bunch of guys that we kept each other accountable, and we were open and honest, and each one of us were watching each other's computer and phones like, hey, I got you. You better bring me that device right now. We had to go through that journey. And that's when really I realized the grace of God is incredible. When in the darkest places of your life, you do not know how dark it is until you're there. In this case, it was so dark for me. But I knew if I just went to the light, I was going to be okay. So I'm encouraging you today, if you're struggling with porn or you're struggling with loneliness or whatever, bring it to Christ. Bring it to the cross. Allow Him to inspire you, encourage you. Because as we suffer and as we have pain, and as we have hurt, as we have other things that can affect us emotionally, you can turn your eyes to Jesus. Say, Jesus, give me some joy. It's like truly a shot of His Holy Spirit just saying, here's some more joy for you. Because there's nothing more powerful than having our God being our healer. Enough about that. So, I was 21, and then shortly after that, I went back to school, and we're going to San Diego State. And before we jump into the rest of this part of the story, I want to take a moment and talk about my pottery. Because this is when I went from doing pottery at Helen Keller National Center. They're like, Kelvin, you got to learn how to throw on the wheel by feel. I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you. I don't think I could do that. Lo and behold, that's what I ended up doing. I learned how to throw by feel. But the problem was I wasn't really that great of a thrower. So I went to Mesa College in San Diego and took ceramics. The first project that we had to do on the pottery wheel was you had to make straight cylinders, and they had to be at least 6 inches high. If you have done pottery and you've never thrown, or you've done a little bit but you don't have a lot of experience with it, there's nothing more difficult than getting the clay up 6 inches and not getting it to be too tight and not getting it to fall apart and not... There's just so many problems just to go up 6 inches. And I'll never forget a day where I'm trying to do this. I can't see it. And I'm so angry. And I just chucked the clay across the room. I felt better afterwards, actually. But it was one of those moments I realized, let's take a moment. Let me breathe. Let me find joy in this. And I pulled that clay, and I made one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever made in my life. And I still have it today. I did it with like a crackle glaze, and it has a little handle. You can go fetch water with it. It was really cool. And so it's a reminder to me, when it comes so difficult, take a moment to breathe and say, God, guide my way. In this case, He helped me make this piece, and it's still a reminder every day, I can do this. My journey with pottery was not easy at the beginning. Over time, it got better and better and better. And I think I will do a video one of these days where I'll pull all of my stuff out of the cobwebs and all that stuff and tell you my pottery story and how the pieces evolved and become what they are today. And kind of my signature and how I got to this point. Because when you do pottery and you're starting pottery, it's okay. But you don't actually start building your style until later on. I'll do that another day. But we still got a lot to get through. After struggling with pouring and working with it, and it's still a daily struggle, and I can't see anymore. And it doesn't go away when you lose your eyeballs. I'm just telling you. Pourings in sounds, pourings in music, it's pourings everywhere. It doesn't have to be pictured. You still have to come to the cross and say, God, help me. Because it's everywhere. And you still have to keep accountability. Accountability. It was probably about a couple months later, after I really had a foundation to keep fighting the battle to address my pouring issues. Abigail and I knew each other for a very long time. At this point is when we started dating and we started really building our relationship. And it was definitely Christ-centered. We had some hurdles, especially early on, and I'll never forget the day. One time, she was trying to hide her face with her hair, her beautiful blonde hair, and I said, hey, don't do that, because I'm not going to always have that. I won't always be able to see you. And we were both crying, and I just told her I love her, and she told me she loved me, and we knew together we were going to go through a journey. And if you know my wife, she's an incredible woman. And she truly has a heart for those who are in need, those who hurt, those who just need somebody to listen. Through this journey of dating, Abigail and I had to work through, how do we deal with my blindness? One, she wasn't a dog lover, so how was she going to deal with Jerry, my guide dog? And she knew that I came with the dog and I needed to have my independence, and we worked through that. And we got married. But when we went on our honeymoon, Abigail had lost her jobs that she had, and I was still in college. And when we were on our honeymoon, I'll never forget being on our knees, asking God, where are we going to live? How are we going to pay our bills? And how are we going to keep moving forward? We come home from our honeymoon, we open up our gifts, and we go to our little trailer that we were in for 3 weeks. And I don't recommend that, being newlyweds, being in a fifth wheel. So I'll leave it there. We woke up the next morning after all of our wedding stuff were done, and we looked at each other, and her phone goes off. And it's a text message from her teacher at her accounting school that she went to saying, hey, are you looking for work? So they had that conversation that Wednesday night. The next day, she started her new job. Thursday night, her dad got a job in Northern California, and her mom was going to have to leave her job doing bookkeeping and accounting. And her mom's boss said, I'll hire your daughter. Lo and behold, God provided a way when we did not see a way. But this isn't where it ends. So we only had 3 weeks in the fifth wheel, And because I had a guide dog, people were saying, no, we don't want a dog and so forth. Obviously, that's against the law, but I was in such a hurry to find a new place. I was just praying, God, I don't know how we're going to do this. And I love to say, when you don't see a way, He makes a way. And it was literally 3 days before our spot was going to be up. And we were going to have to move the fifth wheel. And we get up that morning, and we found a place not too far from a trolley stop. And it's a place that we really haven't looked at. It was affordable. And next thing you know, like we both were like, this is it. And then we put in an application, and it took a day to do that. And then come Friday, we're like, oh, we still only have one more day left. How are we going to do this? And then that Friday, the paperwork came through, and we got the keys. And we moved in that Saturday. And like I said, when you don't see a way, God makes a way. He truly had this situation in His hands. It wasn't like we were hurting. We were hoping that He would provide. Part of being a believer of Christ and part of persevering through your struggles is that you have to seek for joy. And then with that joy, it allows you to take the next step. And when you take that next step, then you build something in your heart that truly becomes this character of hope. So that everything that hurts in life, you start having hope in it. And it's incredible. Incredible. So, all that to say, when Abigail and I first got married, it was a little bit of a journey. And it was a first testament in how strong our marriage was going to become. After about a year being married, I was the vice president of Student Advisory Board at San Diego State University. Basically, the whole mission behind that board is that we would take things and make change for people with disabilities. Before I go forward with this story, Mary Stojai was the biggest advocate for people with disabilities at San Diego State University. She also was the Student Disability Services top person of that department. Her and I had, over the year, have built this amazing relationship. And she taught me so much in how to help people with disabilities and make change and how do you change, how to fight with love and education rather than fight with my voice and anger. And it was one of the most best advice she ever gave me, because I still do it today. Mary and I had worked on a project. At San Diego State, there's a bike lane that has just paint on the ground, and being blind, many times I've been hit by bikes and skateboarders and whatever because I have no idea where the bike lane is. And so we needed to create a way so that blind people would know where the bike lane is, and it would kind of create a buffer between walking people and bike riders. And so I developed a way to create truncated dome path all the way up and down the bike lane, so that way you could detect with a blind cane or your foot or with a guide dog where the truncated domes were, which are like these little bumps. But these were special type. They were a little bit different than we normally are used to seeing. So I presented that to Mary. Mary said, all right, perfect. Let me introduce you to these people. You're going to talk to them. You're going to pitch them on your idea. And I'm going to do some other stuff so that way we can get this done. Lo and behold, I get an email from the maintenance guy at San Diego State. He goes, check out these pictures. And lo and behold, the truncated domes are being put in. After about a year, I was actually taking boxing classes, and I get a phone call from San Diego State, one of my friends at school, and she said, I need you to come to the office right now. Just come as you are. I said, okay. I was all sweaty and disgusting, and let me take a quick shower. You don't want me smelly. So I took a quick shower, jumped on the trolley, got out to San Diego State. I go in her office, and I, lo and behold, see a friend of mine, Tiffany, was starting to have tears in her eyes. Tracy was just like looking at us and saying, I don't have good news to tell you. So she closes her door, and then she says, Mary Shojai was murdered last night. Tiffany and I are just holding each other's hands, and we're holding Tracy's hands, and I just lost it. And I just started bawling my eyes out. You could hear it outside of her office. You probably could hear it outside of the area that we were in. I was so angry. And it took me a while to recover. And so I went home to my wife. I went home to my family. But nobody in my life knew the pain. They didn't have a relationship with Mary. They didn't know who Mary really was. I mean, they've heard me talk about her. They didn't know how close I was to Mary. So what I did was I knew I had to heal. I knew I had to work through this pain. So every morning, right before everybody gets to work, I would show up at the office and I would just mourn with everybody. We would talk about great stories about Mary. We would tell how awesome she was. We would celebrate her life. So that way we could heal through the pain, but the pain still caused anger. Because this was a brutal murder. Through this journey, I'm healing with a lot of people that are not believers. They're seeing my joy, though. Because I'm healing. I'm healing with joy. I'm angry. Yeah, rightly so. I'm having sorrow. I'm having the pain. I'm feeling the emotions. I'm working through the emotions. But God is there every time to say, here's some more joy for you. And then healing started to come. The pain wasn't gone, but the pain was under God's control. It doesn't mean it's going to go away. But God always would pick me back up. I'll never forget when we did the whole memorial service, I was asked to speak for all the students at San Diego State. And I talked about what she did for so many students at San Diego State University with disabilities. She really had a heart in making opportunities for people with disabilities. This time in my life was a very lonely time. I'd be around people that were grieving with me, but my everyday life, nobody knew my pain. I want to say to anybody, if you had somebody in your life that's been murdered, it's okay to be angry. And it's okay to be very frustrated and angry about the situation. But put your joy in Christ. So that way you can manage it and you can give it to Jesus every single time. That's my encouragement to you. But this was the beginning stages of me learning how to advocate with love and education. Because what I found is a lot of times I was advocating with anger and frustration and yelling, but when I showed love and education, this made a big difference. Which landed me a job at San Diego State University, teaching professors how to make their classrooms accessible. This gave me the opportunity to give professors a person that really needs this service and teach them how to do the job and how to do it quick and efficiently. And it was an incredible time. I mean, I would meet with professors, I would take their curriculum and say, all right, this is what we need to do, and we would make it completely accessible. I wish all professors were that way, but the ones that saw me, they had a huge heart in helping their students learn the things for their classroom. When my time was up at San Diego State University, I was very successful and made a lot of change for the good for those with disabilities there. And it was a testament to my friend Mary of just her taking the time and saying, fight with love and educate. And if you educate the people and you show them love, you're going to get the results that you need. which then, as that came through, it gave me the credibility to graduate college and land my first job right out of college, which I think we all know what that feels like. You just want to land that first job. Whatever it is that is somewhat in your field or kind of in your field, that's all you want. I landed a job development working for the state of California. And this job was one of those jobs where there wasn't really a lot of training, and you had to take the job and you had to get other people that are blind jobs. And this is my first job. I've never done it before. So I would go to businesses and I would show them, let's take a task that you have to do every day for your job, and let's see who goes faster. And I would be done almost 15 to 20 minutes faster than the person doing the job. And I said, so you want to hire some blind people? And that's how I was able to get my success rate working there and helping blind people get jobs. I had great success, but I also had great failures. I would get my clients into these jobs, but they weren't as efficient as I was, and they didn't have the skills that I had. What happened was, my clients would go into the job, and then 3 months later, they're being let go because they can't keep up with the work. And it was heartbreaking. How can I solve this problem so I can at least help my clients be successful so that they can keep their jobs and be able to be efficient and be fast and kind of wow their employers? Long-term wise, that would have been the place for me to stay. But that wasn't where my heart was. My heart was just solving problems and creating solutions. And so I found a company that was willing to create what I wanted to do to help blind individuals learn the technology and be competitive in the workplace, which was San Diego Futures Foundation. So they hired me, and I built this program in 6 months. And then 6 months later, we had several people working for the county of San Diego. And then 6 months later, I got way too many students, and I'm bringing in more people to work for me and literally establish a whole business inside this nonprofit. And it still runs today. And it goes to the testament, when you see a problem, don't just complain about the problem. Look at how you can solve the problem. We look at the Perseverance podcast, right? So a lot of the stories we talked about have been about persevering through just health or other things. But have you ever thought about persevering through a problem that somebody else might have or you might have, and then creating a solution that not only helps you or just helps one person, but that can help hundreds or thousands of people? So in this case, that's exactly what I did. And in the meantime, there's an issue that came into my life at this point. I had lost the clarity in my left eye. Up until this point, I had all the clarity in the central part of my vision, and then when I was at 28 years old, my left eye stopped being able to see clear, and I could not even read the biggest letter on the chart. And I just remember being in the doctor's office and realizing I can't do that. Abigail's there holding my hand, and I'm just bawling my eyes out because I wasn't ready for that. And it wasn't easy to realize that I will never be able to read with my left eye anymore. Like a few months later, I had to give a presentation. I just had to talk about that part, and it was painful. I'm sitting in front of like 1,000 people and bawling my eyes out because I am still grieving. This is a point I want you to really understand. It is important to grieve. It is important to cry. It's important to feel the pain, the hurt, the frustration, the suffering, the anger. It's important to feel it. Don't push it away. Because if you push it away, it's only to get heavier and heavier and heavier. I'll be honest, that was the mistake I did. in this situation, losing the clarity in my left eye. I did not grieve it. I just said, okay, well, I'll start creating solutions to prepare for the future. But I just kept going because I still had my right eye. So through this journey, I've successfully created a program that teaches blind people how to use the computer and be competitive in the workplace. And I've lost the clarity in my left eye. I'm seeing another problem. And that problem is a lot of my students were struggling to find our office where we taught and did all our classes. And so I said, you know what? They have GPS, they have all this other stuff. But what if I created a robot that you put your hand on and it'll guide you to point A to point B? And it takes all the worry out of all the problems. You just walk out of your door. There's no stress. So I said, let's start building it. So I taught myself some engineering skills, learned how to use a circuit board, and put together a few sensors, and had a little accident, and I blew up one of my circuit boards because I put in the wrong cable into the wrong port and put some electricity through it, and what a boom. So that's when I realized I should probably make a team. So I made a team to do that, and we made the first version of this prototype. And as we got deeper into this project, I realized I was going to have to raise a lot of money to make this work. As well, I was too early to market, because to really make this work, I needed full connectivity at all times, and it could not lose connectivity. And we all know about technology. Our cell phone loses connectivity, even our Wi-Fi loses connectivity, so there's a problem there. But I had such great success in 2018 in fundraising. I said, I gotta leave San Diego Futures Foundation. I'm gonna put all my energy into Smart Guider and build this robot. And I started seeing success, but I'm realizing this is just becoming more and more expensive, and I'm just investing way too much money without getting a lot in return. And that's when I realized I've been hit by a car 3 times. And I said, I'm going to go to National Federation for the Blind. I'm going to go ask this question. Have you ever been hit by a car? So I asked about 100 people that question. And they're like, yeah, I've been hit by a car. Out of that 100, I only found 2 that never had an incident of being hit by a car. And to me, that was a testament. I got to solve that problem too. So I set out to solve that problem. So I said, I'm going to make a tube and put some light in there, and let's see how that works. So I did that. Worked out really well. Showed it off to a couple people, and they're like, yeah, you're on the right path. And then we get into 2020. People are excited about this See-Me cane, this lighted blind cane, but the biggest issue is the tube too big and it's too heavy, and this isn't really exactly what we're looking for, but it's close. So come February of 2020, I go to the conference, I meet this guy. He says, I got your solution to solve your tubing problem. I'm like, perfect. So we did that. I go to the next conference, and there was barely anybody at this conference. It was March of 2020, and I had my prototype came with me, and people were like super excited about it. But there's very few people. And I'm thinking, this is weird. Well, we all know what March of 2020 was all about. So I ended up leaving that conference early and went home. Nobody really knew at that time what was going on. So I'm going to put this part of the story in pause because I'm going to introduce a new character into this. And that was my first foster son. So 2019 was when my first foster son came to live with us. And I was homeschooling him through this journey, and he was making great strides. And he was the kid that needed love, support, and encouragement, and just to keep going forward. And he did all that. So fast forward, he was at that conference with me, and I was still homeschooling him. So we leave, come home, where I'm homeschooling him. His school's telling us that there won't be any IEP stuff that he had. And I have a meeting with this investor in 2 weeks. He already is really excited about the seeming cane. So I go get ready to schedule the meeting with this guy. He's like, I can't do it, Kelvin. I can't do it. And that's when everything shut down. And he had just lost a bunch of money. And I'm just devastated. At that point, COVID's here to stay. March goes by. April goes by. May goes by. And Father's Day's coming. And my foster son decides he's going to go for a bike ride that day. 1 hour goes by. I'm like, okay, he'll probably have a good time. And then another hour goes by. I'm like, he doesn't normally be gone this long. I had my dad go out and try to find him. Didn't find him. 4 hours go by. 6 hours go by. He's not anywhere to be found. So I called the police and said, hey, I want to report a missing child. I think he's been kidnapped. I don't think he would have gone away on his own. So they came like 2 a.m. and I told them the whole story and filed a missing child report for him. He was gone. 2 weeks go by and I go to look at the computer screen to make a video for him and try to see if we can get him through the internet, and I lose the clarity in my right eye. So I can no longer see even the littlest thing on my computer. And I am just devastated. Super angry. And losing hope that we're going to find my foster son. And then a month later we find him. And he doesn't want to come back to live with us. So now we're into August. Don't have any funding to run my business. I don't have enough vision to run my business. And I'm losing hope. But there was hope to be found. This journey has been tough. This journey has been painful. And this season has been challenging. As I wrap up, I want you to remember, when you don't see a way, God will make a way. All you have to do is say, God, help me rejoice in my suffering so I can persevere. And with that perseverance, build a character that has hope in you. So now it's time for the Perseverance Corner. And today's verse is going to come from the Old Testament. And next year, I will be doing Perseverance through the Bible, and Ruth is going to be one of them. So today's scripture is coming from Ruth 1:11 through 13. So here it is.
Ruth chapter 1 verses 11 to 13. But Naomi said, Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons? Who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me.
So just a FYI, none of you have complained about my robot voice. So I'm continuing to use it because it's a lot easier for me. So until you guys start complaining, I'm going to keep using it. Let's dive into this scripture. If you know Ruth and you know her story, you have Naomi, which is the mother-in-law of Ruth. And in this time of history, for a woman, it was really important to be married. And you really wanted to make sure you had a husband for status, be able to have access to certain things in the community. And there was a massive amount of benefit when you were married. In this case, Naomi's 2 sons both died. Naomi's husband had died too. And with this in mind, you have three widows. Naomi saying, God, this is a curse on me. Now it's impacting my daughters. But let's look at this from a different perspective. Right here, Naomi has no hope. And one of the biggest things I've been learning lately in my own life is really evaluating my hope. Is my hope on this earth, or is my hope in eternity in heaven? And that's why I really wanted to kind of come here and give you a scripture of a woman that had no hope. In the fact that she now is a widow. She has daughter-in-laws that are taking care of her, but they're widows too, with no grandchildren, and there's just not a lot of hope in general. You might be going through something today where you're thinking, I don't really have a lot of hope. I personally am going through something right now that I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. And in some ways, I feel like Naomi, like, am I really going to get a positive result on the other side of this situation in my personal life? I normally would share a bunch of my stuff with you guys, but this specific is a pretty personal thing, and also there's some legal things behind it, so I'm not going to be disclosing what that is. But if you are close to me, you know exactly what's going on. So just be in prayer for me to continue to have hope when you seem there is no hope at the moment. So in this passage, Naomi has no hope. Well, we didn't read the rest of the passage, and we didn't read the rest of the book of Ruth. There is a lot of hope that comes later, but it came with falling in love with God and knowing that God would show you favor. That's what I'm going through right now, and that's what I'm praying, that God, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going in the direction that you're calling me to go, and I want to encourage you to go in the direction that God is calling you, and keep running the race and persevering through this hard time in your life. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but get excited about it. Ask God to give you joy about it, and He will let you make the first step. He will pick your foot up literally and make you move. But you have to be willing to lean into Him. And as you will find, Naomi leaned in to her God, and Ruth would also learn from that example as well. It's an incredible story. If you haven't read Ruth, definitely go read it. It's a short read. It's only 5 chapters. It'll make your heart feel warm. But at the same time, I want you to remember, hope can look in different ways. It can be hope right there in front of your face, where I can hope that I'm going to have enough gas for my car. Or hope is my family member hasn't accepted Christ, and I know through prayer and petition and persevering that my family member will find Christ. Alright, so that is my Persevere Corner for you all, and here comes the announcements. I have to give a shout out to Spencer again. He raised over $20,000 for See Me Cane, and so just a FYI everybody, I'm going to have Spencer interview for next month. His story is incredible, and we're going to walk through the journey of how he was able to raise $20,000 for the See Me Cane, but there's a lot more behind that, and we're going to see how he persevered and now is becoming a man that God is calling to make a change in today's world, and he's now learning how to live this new life with freedom, independence, and perseverance. Also, we'll be dropping this next month the Perseverance through the Bible, which I'll read a passage. It will essentially be like the Perseverance Corner, but a lot longer and a lot more nuggets for you to take home and enjoy, and just really realize those that have to persevere in the Bible really face hard times. And what does that mean as Christians or as a person that's not a believer, how do you keep moving forward when there is no hope or perseverance available? So that's what we'll be doing through the perseverance through the Bible. And DeafBlind Potter, if you need pieces, there are pieces for the holiday. You got about 4 days to be able to get your pieces, and they'll arrive for the holidays. Update on the See Me Cane. The See Me Cane is fully funded for the first 200 See Me Cane, and now we're going through a series of investments. So if you are interested in investing and you are a close friend of mine or accredited investor, we are going to be doing a crowdfunding campaign next month, which starts in January, and then we'll get the first 100 See Me Canes out the door in March. And we'll be doing that at CSUN, where we'll get a lot of people using See Me Cane. We'll be lighting up areas. People are going to be excited. It's going to be a fun time. And I'm excited to bring that to the Perseverance podcast just because it's been a journey. I think it's important that you realize how much pain I've had to go through to invent a product. How many failures did I have to go through? But when you don't see a way, God makes a way. That's it for my announcements today. I want to wish you guys a Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And know that this season is the season that gave us salvation and gave us the ability to persevere through every single challenge because we have hope in Christ. And this is how we will live beyond our challenges. Now you ready to persevere through your challenges today. Thank you for joining me on the Perseverance Podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can email me at kelvin@perseverancepodcast.com. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at DeafBlind Potter. If you'd like to buy some merch or some DeafBlind Potter pieces, you can go to deafblindpotter.com. Please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the Perseverance Podcast so you don't miss an episode. That way, you and I can continue living beyond our challenges and persevering through them too.